Hey guys, welcome to Tech Guys Banter, where me and my friend Vishal we talk about tech and any other random topics that we find interesting. I am Ankur. I'm a tech professional working at a startup, and I am based out of Seattle, Washington. Over to you, Vishal.
Hello, guys. Welcome to Tech Guys Banter. My name is Vishal, and I work for a big tech company, and I'm based in Seattle, Washington as well. So, cool. Ankur, what is the topic for today?
Yeah, today we are talking about remote work, specifically remote work for tech companies, how it has changed over the last 2 to 3 years, and what does the future of remote work look like.
This
But
is
before
for
that, Vishal, we need
okay.
to do our tradition. What are you drinking today?
Wow. With me today, I have Moscow Mule. Um,
Nice,
uh, just a little bit of vodka and a ginger beer in it.
nice. How is it?
Let's try it out.
And I am again pretty boring. Just some scotch on the rocks.
Wow. Scotch is
Cheers.
not boring, Ankur.
Cheers.
Cheers, Ankur.
All right, Vishal. So, if we talk about remote work, I think remote work became more of a reality for most of us over the last 3 years, and I think pandemic is what basically accelerated the shift towards remote work for all of us. Uh, so, I think it makes sense for us to start the discussion uh, by refreshing or remembering what was the first day like when during the pandemic the companies started announcing remote work kind of out of necessity for all of us. Do you remember the day when that happened for you?
So for me, I think it was early Feb, 2020, uh, and I got this news that someone has been found with COVID-19 virus in Seattle, and that was kind of not a fully panic mode moment. I have been following that story from like it occurred in China, right? So I had a couple of my teammates who informed me that this is happening in China. Um, but actually, to be honest, in early Feb, right, when I decided that I will go remote, right, I I I didn't had the idea that it will carry along for like 2 3 years, right? When I
Right.
was when I informed my colleagues and my manager saying um, I will like to work remote for a couple of days because this virus is there. I literally talked to them like, hey, for 1 or 2 days maybe I will be working from home to see the situation.
Yeah.
That never happened actually. And I met my manager or my teammates after 2 years, and yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy that you thought that you would meet your colleagues in 2 3 days, and then it was basically like almost 2 years after that you saw them, right? It
Yeah.
is surreal. I remember, I vividly remember the day that Amazon declared remote work. I think I I was taking the bus to go to office, and I got on the bus, opened my mail to check what were the new mails for the day, and then I saw a email from our VP asking all of us not to come to the office, right? So I still like very clearly remember that, and then from the next day onwards, it was completely remote. And for me, you got to see your colleagues after 2 years. I actually changed my company. I think in between pandemic, so like a lot of them I never got to see again. So that's uh, that's crazy, right? So yeah, still it feels extremely surreal whenever I think about that day in 2020. So it's yeah, like more than 3 years now that uh, we went through the pandemic. The pandemic is over, and seems like we have come a long way in terms of how we work, right? The like working remotely, connecting over Zoom or Google Meet or whatever team seem to be like a new thing. Now it's like extremely common. So
Oh no.
almost like we cannot live without that, right? So
I think
yeah.
one thing is like I think pandemic forced us to go remote work, right? There were previously there were jobs which were capable of being remote, but actually the FaceTime was valued a lot, um, right, before pandemic. And I
Yeah.
think pandemic shifted that, right? Pandemic made it like even jobs that they like. I will tell you an example, right? Doctor consultation. I never thought doctor consultation can be a remote job, but
Mm.
in pandemic, right, I had a very like something came up, and I have to get consultation from a doctor, right? I went to teledoc and I just scheduled an appointment from there, uh, and within I will say 24 to 48 hours I got like 45 minutes slot with a doctor. We came along over a Zoom call. It was not Zoom, I think it was some other software they were using at that
Hmm.
time, and we chatted face to face remotely, and then probably my issue was also resolved in that meeting. And then that is something that I observed, like jobs that we thought will never be remote, like lawyers, right? I never
Mm.
thought lawyer will be a remote job. um,
Yeah.
and nowadays every meeting, lawyer meeting is remote. Like they send two options, whether you want to do in person or you want to do remote. I always pick remote. So
Yeah.
I think that is more convenient. And I think if you see the dynamics, right, both parties, when they are on a call, they understand how important remote work is. So I haven't seen people dropping off or making excuses or anything like that, right? People, I think they have understood that we have to provide value in this fashion now. So both the parties, the customer as well as the provider, right, both come along very well in remote setting nowadays.
Yeah. We humans are extremely adaptable, is what I realized, and we can really adapt extremely quick. Like pandemic and the force to become remote was like the biggest example. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic. um, why don't we like start by talking about the impact to like employees, like what do you think, how did it impact, like as an employee, how did you feel about like when you started working remotely, what was the impact to you?
So I will tell you, like I have been doing remote work pre-pandemic as well, but that was one off kind of a thing, right?
Right.
We never did it on a continuous basis. So for like the good part was my home office was already set up at that time. Many
Right.
people struggled in that aspect a lot, to set up a home office. So definitely there was challenge over there. For me, I think I had the home office set up before pandemic, so it felt very natural to me for a week or a two. But after I hit that week or a two, I started missing all the teammates. I started
Mm.
missing all the conversations that we were having, like in a hallway, in cafeteria. And I will tell you, like many good ideas or many good networking connections are made in those like small moments, right? And I started missing that. So as a fallback plan, I started uh, doing a phone call with some of my colleagues, right? So
Yeah.
that was a backup plan, and they were in the same situation. Nobody was loving to have like be remote for so long. And to be honest, in the initial days, it was not just remote work. It was more of you were caged in your home, right?
Yeah.
Like there was no way, like people were scared to go to grocery stores, I will tell you, right? People were scared
Yeah.
to go outside, right? So for us, I think I was feeling that isolation, right? Being so definitely that was not good time eventually, but work wise, if you see, we adapted to remote work very quickly. um, so for if you see overall employees, right, so they benefited a little bit on that, those aspects, like you reduced your commute time, right?
Yeah.
You Many people, they moved closer to families, right? People who were not close to families, they started moving closer to families. um, Definitely people who were not in like the hubs, the tech hubs, right, they started applying jobs for remote, right? So that was an advantage for. So if you see overall, if we weigh pros and cons, I think employees had a little bit gain in this remote culture, right? Definitely I'm not discounting the aspect of when you say you are missing your team, you are missing all the connections, it is difficult to share ideas, all that aspect I understand, right? But on the basis of like, we have seen many people are not going back to office even after being called, right? So
Mm.
the reason for that is employees have become used to the remote work culture, right? Initially it was other way around. People were like, I cannot focus at home, right? I need office space, isolated space to focus and deliver my thing. Nowadays I think everyone has their home office setup most probably, and they have become used to like, hey, this is how we can be productive as well, right? That is
Yeah.
how I think employees have started shifting their paradigm to remote work. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there is an aspect of employer, how employer sees remote work as well.
Yeah. I can only like put myself in the shoes of an employer. I think it was a huge sudden challenge, right? And they had to kind of adjust to all this. Like there's an infrastructure aspect to this as well, because not every company had like proper collaboration tools to support remote work for their like entire employee base, right? And not every employee is a tech employee, right, in a company. And we are privileged that our job is tech job. So I think most of us can operate almost 100% to our capacity remotely. But there are like, I know that there are many jobs that are like a lot of operational jobs actually required you to be in an office to be like serving the customers. So I think for employers it was very challenging, like supporting, I think both, right, office and making sure that they were following all the guidelines laid out by local government, federal government related to the pandemic, but then also like making sure that the remote employees were able to do their job well. So I think there was a huge challenge, and I think good companies actually turned that crisis like into an advantage for themselves, right? So a lot of I think startups who were quick to understand that this was going to be the new normal actually use this opportunity to hire outside the typical areas where you find like tech talent density, like the Bay Area, New York, Seattle, right? So I remember I used to work for a company which was not one of those big tech, but and we always had to compete with the big tech like Amazon, Google, Microsoft for top talent. And like this whole move to remote actually gave us an advantage. So we quickly started focusing in locations outside these typical hubs for tech, and we had a huge success. Right, initially it was somewhat of a challenge because you had to kind of figure out the specifics of hiring outside these tech hubs, but like soon we had like uh, got it going, and we found like a lot of great talent outside these hubs, right? So that was one of the I think advantages for the employers. Quickly, I think all the FANG companies caught up. They also started opening up remote work for like locations outside the tech hubs. But I think that was great. Like we like ideally you want like to have access to talent like wherever in the world, right? So it is like we were able to like open it up for like entire US. I think that was a huge advantage to the employers. I think like for like the same company, one of our like highlights was that we offered the company first of all went completely remote, right? It was a in-person company which went completely remote, and that turned out to be a huge highlight when we were hiring, because I think most people want flexibility. So it was a like good USP for us while we were actually trying to get the top talent, right? So we could offer remote work. uh, and I think apart from that, lot of real estate uh, that companies had in very expensive locations, for example like downtown San Francisco or Seattle, companies could eventually uh, like lease out a lot of that real estate or free up a lot of the real estate and use that money for maybe something else to grow their business. I think that was eventually a good thing for the employers as well. So yeah, I think overall it feels like it was largely a good thing uh, for most of the tech companies.
I think tooling was one of the challenges for tech companies, and the
Yeah,
biggest benefit was probably going away with the burden of all the infra real estate thing that they have to manage, right? So I think many companies, they didn't even renew their leases, right? They just gave up, like
yeah,
once the tenure was over, they didn't renew the lease. That's it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that was the
I think one more area that I feel was a big challenge for the companies and remains a big challenge actually is the whole like ensuring that you can maintain the culture, right? I feel it's easier to retain and build a culture that you want to when you are like meeting physically regularly with your employees, and that's a challenge when you are like totally remote, right? So especially for like new hires, right? Like if I have been in a company for a few years in person, I know the culture, the nuances. Now I am remote. It's easier for me to like make sure that I uh, follow the same values and retain that culture. But if I'm joining as a new hire in a totally different company, which has its own nuances, quirks, culture, it becomes very difficult for me to like even understand, and for the employer to kind of
yes.
imbibe that culture into me. And so I think the biggest challenge was for the new hire employees, right? And I have changed companies during the whole last 3 years multiple times, so I have faced that. And I am mostly in a management role, so my work requires me to like talk to people. So I think it can be a little less challenging for me. I'm also like not a like employee who is like early in their career, so I can kind of handle this. But I can really feel for new hires, especially the folks that are maybe like 2 3 5 years, or maybe like they're just starting out,
Starting out.
right? Completely freshers in a new company. It has to be extremely difficult for them, right? So um, I think if companies wants to retain their culture, make sure that the new hires imbibe the culture that they want, they need to invest heavily into like onboarding, making sure that the onboarding is good.
And
So
one thing, when you said culture, right? One thing came in my mind was there was an initiative where people were trying to build activities via remote work, which was so
Yeah,
difficult, which was very difficult, right? I heard they used to play bingo, remote bingos, right? And there was one where they will do an auction, remote auction, so that it will be a small thing, right, which you can send via a courier or anything, very small thing, but they will just do a small auction kind of thing, like, hey, what are you willing to, like, give up for gaining this gift, right? So I think many teams were trying to build the culture around that, but I know it was very difficult, right?
it was
Very.
difficult. I will tell you, I am one of the person who is like little kind of apprehensive about this kind of things. Uh, but I'll tell you, like initially it was difficult, but eventually I think we figured out, right? And there were many such activities, team activities that we did over like Zoom, that I was surprised, like after the activity, that it's so successful. I'll tell you, like one thing I remember was a magic show,
Oh.
a magic show over Zoom. It was not bad. Like I think the person performing did a pretty good job, and they tried
Wow.
their best to like engage with the audience, and so which was great. Like it was like a win-win, right? We had a team activity, and I think this was a magician which who was used to performing in person. Now due to pandemic, they had to kind of reinvent themselves and do it over Zoom. So that was great. Um, I did a team activity with my team members, and we did a cooking class
Wow.
over Zoom. And
Really?
then they managed all the logistics. They sent us all the ingredients that we needed, the instructions, recipes. We did it over Zoom. Had a prepared a great meal, had a couple of drinks, and then it was a great team activity, right? So similarly, I remember like many of those team activities that we did. We used to play a lot of Pictionary. I
Oh,
think that that is no longer so popular, but initial days I remember like team members would play Pictionary together just to like hang out and make sure. So yeah, like I think those are great for making sure that you kind of uh, make your team feel included
yes.
uh, when they join a new company. So I was thinking that I as I said, right, onboarding I think is the biggest challenge for a remote company, right? And I think for if companies wants to make their new hires successful, what I feel is the onboarding should definitely happen in person, right? So I think it really helps if a company is remote to have some hubs around, so for example, around US, if you are a US company, where you have like offices, right? And make sure that your new hires are like actually flying to the hub and then staying there for at least 1 week, and maybe like even 3 weeks, and like going through the onboarding, meeting new team members, making sure that they are feeling like they are part of the team, right? So like make an offsite out of it, right? Maybe
Yeah.
like have an offsite every 2 months or 3 months, and make sure that all the new hires join, and like they are like in person, they are actually going through the onboarding. I think that can be like have like a 2x 3x impact versus like just doing onboarding remotely.
Remote.
So if I were like a founder of a company and could like make a change that would really impact culture, I think like this is something that companies should definitely do.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, so Vishal, so I think we discussed about how remote work has impacted employers, employees. I think we should touch on how it has impacted the economy, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
uh, what do you think? How do you see the whole remote work? If you look back in the past 3 years, how it has impacted the economy?
So the remote work has drastically impacted many sectors, right? I will give you a couple of examples, right? The first thing that I saw was restaurant business. Like, all the
Yeah.
people who created restaurants around the campuses, they were out of
Yeah.
business immediately. Like, And after 6 months, 7 months, like they were running out of ideas, right? So many of them have to literally shut down their businesses, right?
Yeah.
So that was the like the first impact that I saw right away, right? Also, one biggest change that I saw was home prices started going up, like because everyone was thinking they are not going to office now. They used to spend like more than 7 8 hours in office, right? Now they are spending that amount of time at home, so they need a bigger place. They started buying, either they started upgrading their place or they started buying new place. So I saw the home prices started going up drastically, right? At one point there was a bump of like 30 to 40% in home prices. So actually on the same lines, because there was such a drastic upward movement in home prices, many people, what they started doing was they started moving from high cost of living areas to low cost of living areas, right? Like if you see the migration patterns for all the tech employees, we saw a lot of migration happening from California to Texas, from New York to Florida. North Carolina was one of the attractions that time. Like people were flying to North Carolina a lot. So the reason for that was people wanted to have low cost of living with a higher pay. Actually, there is this program where if you do remote work, Vermont was a state which was paying you $10,000.
Yeah.
You just have to go there and you say, hey, I have a job in another state and I will be living here. I am either buying a property, renting a property, and basically
Oh,
they will,
really? That's interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, they will verify, and after certain time they will probably give you incentive of even $10,000, right? So many states saw this opportunity, right, where they were not a tech hub. They were looking for people to come into their state for better economy. So there was a
Right.
lot of migration happening at that time, right? Uh, Again, we saw change in compensation as well, right? Like people who were not in the tech hubs, they started applying for jobs which were in those areas because those jobs were completely remote, right? And because it's a remote job, you basically have you the barrier of going there, right? Many people usually do not go to San Francisco or California because they know it will be very high cost, and they have their own arrangements in their own state. So all
Yeah.
of that barriers were taken down, and now they can easily apply to these high paying jobs. So definitely, like if you see the home prices in these other states like Florida, North Carolina, it also went up in percent
Yeah.
on percentage basis. It went more up, but they were still um, cheaper than the high these tech hubs, yeah, cost of living, right, or the home prices. So on economy basis, there was a lot of shift, and actually we are seeing the economy effect till now. Like if you follow commercial real estate today, right? Commercial real estate is in big trouble. The reason is people created these commercial real estate anticipating they will have tenancy throughout, because once a big tech company buys your real estate, they are not going to take it out in a year or two, right? But pandemic, it has shifted it. Those companies are not renewing their contracts anymore, and there is a lot of vacant commercial real estate at this point. So remote work has drastically impacted economy, right? And I will not say in a good way or a bad way, but definitely we have seen um, from commercial real estate it has moved to residential, and
Yeah.
from high cost of living people have gone to low cost of living. So
I
that
have
is,
seen like the yeah, commercial 100%, right? Like I hear that the Salesforce tower, like Salesforce has basically completely vacated that, like which was
yes,
like one of the most important buildings. um, and and the prices have gone down by like 60-70%
yes,
in the Bay Area. uh, Even for residential, yes, like there was a huge spike in residential property prices. I think it was largely because of the stimulus and lot of inflow of money in the economy due to the pandemic. Uh, but now I see like a lot of migration from these states like I know California, Washington, New York to like a lot of like southern states in the US. Uh, so there's definitely like a shift in terms of the population and also like prices of houses, right? So
It's not only contained within US, right? Today, I have seen many companies, they are hiring people outside US,
oh
right?
yeah,
So that's a huge advantage to both, right? People who are living in the regions where there were no, there was like less opportunity, I will say, right? Now they are getting these opportunities, and for the employers, they are getting the talent that they needed at a lower cost.
yeah. So remote work seems like it's turning out to be a leveler in terms of the compensation. So obviously, it's not like the compensation are not the same throughout the world, but I think like directionally that's where we are going, which is the gap between compensation that you would get in Bay Area for the same job versus maybe a city in India or China. That gap is slowly shrinking, right? So um, which is an interesting economic uh, change that we are seeing right now. We saw the Great Resignation. You want to talk about the Great Resignation?
Wow, great resignation. That was crazy time, right? That happened in 2021. So great resignation, I think it is it is like many factors came in together. Uh, First thing is remote work created a lot of opportunities. All the employees who were not happy with their current employer, they started seeing, so there are so many opportunities out there, they will just quit the job without even getting the new job, because they knew that there are so many opportunities. If they like try for 5 to 6 opportunities, they will land one job, right? And that will be a high paying job, considering the market situation at that time, right? So not only tech workers, like hospital workers, right, healthcare workers, right, all of them, I saw that there was a big change in the, like, the way they were seeing job market, right? Many, like, at that time, all my LinkedIn posts were, I am changing jobs, like,
Yeah,
and to be honest, like, if you see within some teams, some organizations, even 20% of people, like 20% is a big number for this, right? 20% of people, they quitted the job and they went for something else, right?
yeah,
um, and that time, even employees, they were having like, they were ready to negotiate, right? They were ready to, like, put a higher price on their work, right? And employers were finding it difficult, because if you see, um, during that great resignation period, all your old employees who were paid less, they came to know that market is up for like higher salaries, right? They will just quit, and who is going to do the job? So those, like, once you get a vacant spot, you have to hire, and for hiring there is already a fight going outside.
yeah,
So employers were like throwing out, like, hey, we will give you higher bonuses, we will give you more RSUs, just stick with us, just be like, or even for hiring, they will give huge sign-on bonuses for
yeah. The
so.
interesting one was I what I remember was the this company in India which started giving out super bikes.
Oh.
Have you heard about that? They started. I
No.
think it was Bharat Pay which started giving out super bikes to
Wow.
any new hire,
Wow.
which made a lot of news. Yeah, those were interesting and very unique times. Uh, I also remember there was this post on Blind where one guy mentioned that he was doing like, I don't know, 3 or 4 jobs parallelly. I don't know how he was managing it, but like there were multiple cases of like people doing parallel jobs.
I
So
don't know about 4 or 5 jobs, but definitely, like, it looked like people were doing 2 jobs for sure, right? Some people will come very early to the meetings and everything, and they will decline all the meetings later in that like
Oh, really?
and I like I, why that is a shift. Like they used to say, hey, because of pandemic we are not able to do it, and it felt like why there is suddenly a shift. Earlier everyone used to work from 8 to 5, right? Like
Yeah.
regular working hours.
Let's
And
talk about maybe the current situation, like
Mhm.
how uh, slowly a lot of companies are transitioning from a fully remote to being either completely return to office or a hybrid of return to office and remote. How do you see that thing playing out? I have obviously, like, I have been remote since pandemic, so it's like what, like almost like more than 3 years that I am remote. But I think you
Yeah.
have you're currently in the hybrid model. So how is it going for you? How do you find it?
So I will tell you, right? Like hybrid model is something like you schedule 3 days in office, 2 days remote work, right? And the way I have seen this is like I go 3 days to office, right? But the problem is other person in the team does not follow those 3 days that I have selected, right? So
Hmm.
we were trying to club everyone into the same days, but I will tell you the remote work shift. Everyone was not comfortable, right? So many people like have explicitly said that they want full remote. They are not coming back to the hybrid work culture. On the contrary, I have seen some team members who come 5 days to office. Actually, they
Okay.
they they say that once they come to the office, they see that they are having this focus time for 8 to 9 hours, and they are able to get more things done in that office setting, right?
Yeah.
So if I personally like hybrid a lot. The reason is I need couple of days like where I can focus only delivering stuff, right? I write my code, I write develop features. So I need that time where I don't want to do many meetings. I don't want to bump into others and start conversations which are not relevant for that day. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, the other 3 days that I go to office, like I make an effort to make sure I connect with everyone that is available in office, right?
Hmm.
The reason is we go to office for specifically, I will say, to have like same vision, right? We should have like whatever product we are building, right? We should have we should discuss it,
Alignment.
alignment about all the things that we are doing in that, right? So I think
Mhm.
yeah, that is one of the primary like thing for me when I go in person, right? I try to connect with everyone if possible. It is not possible to connect with everyone every day, but even like I would have said that in a chat, right? But I usually go and just knock their door and say, hey, I wanted to say you this thing, and the conversation starts from there. So I think that is a very good way of like I have seen many different ideas being thrown out in those conversations, right?
Yeah.
So I feel for me, I think remote work works very well. That's how I see it. Uh,
Right. Right.
but on the other hand, once I started doing hybrid, I feel even hybrid brings in along like some specialty in that, right? Where you get to meet up someone in person and talk to them. So
Yeah.
I will prefer like if I can do 3 days remote and 2 days only in person. That will be maybe my preferred model. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we saw a lot of the big tech suddenly shift to calling people back to office in that hybrid mode, right? Um, I don't know. I feel like I am kind of used to working remote in the
Okay.
last 3 years, and my life is now kind of built around like ability to work remotely. I save a lot of time
Yes.
in commute, which I can either like spend working or like spend time with my family, which is like very important to me. um, but yeah, I agree with you that like having that uh, like time in office and meeting people in person is very very crucial. So
I
I
think
think like some companies are doing a very good job of that, which is like they are making sure that they are having adequate offsites, right?
yes,
So I had an offsite in my current company like 2 weeks back, where like all the managers we traveled to our headquarters, and we like just like got to meet each other, discuss certain hot topics, like come to a conclusion on those, and then just like having like lunch and dinner and a few drinks together, or like just like playing, doing some activity together is like extremely like those interactions are priceless, right? You come back, and now the relationship that you have with that colleague is like totally different now, right?
yes,
So those are definitely very very valuable. So yeah, I think I my personal most favorable choice would be like give people the freedom to work from wherever they want, and have like set up so that they can meet in person, like maybe like once a month or once a quarter, whatever makes sense for the role. That would be the ideal, like for me. I personally think that's where the future is, because people are going to get would want to be more and more free, and all the amazing technologies that are coming would like enable us to like actually do that, right? uh, like for some of us it's like we didn't change our base location, we stayed in the same cities, but like a lot of us actually like moved to another totally different city,
yeah,
maybe to be like closer to their family, or like at a less expensive cost of living location. Now if you suddenly ask them to come back, it's they can do it, they are probably doing it, but
yeah.
it's like a big change for them, right? Their kids are probably in a school already. So I can definitely empathize with them, right? So yeah, it's an interesting transition.
I like the thing that you said that there is remote work for you, and then there is an offsite, because in offsite
Yeah,
everyone will attend it, right? So the problem of like I am going and other person is not coming, it's not there. So
yeah,
offsite is a little bit more formal, right?
yeah,
So I like that idea actually.
yeah. It's actually I see like the startups doing that a lot. Like my previous company was of a similar size to my current company, and we did a lot. We encouraged people to travel a lot, and then in my current company also we did. So I really like that. I think that's what we'll probably be doing, like going forward. More and more companies would probably adopt that. So we should discuss a little bit about um, like some tools, tips, tricks for remote work that has worked for us,
Mhm.
and what we have found useful, and what maybe like some of the listeners can take away. So like maybe like do you want to like talk about uh, maybe some like pitfalls of working remotely, and like how to kind of work around those, and if you have like any specific tips or tricks to share?
Sure. For remote work, right? I think one of the biggest challenges that I saw was weight gain. So
Yeah,
usually weight gain is something that happens a lot, right? Like it's very easy, like because you are just at one place, right? You just have to click a button and you can reach someone else, right, easily. And on the other hand, if you are in person, you like we I remember in our office we have multiple floors, and we used to always get a meeting room at the top floor. And
okay.
the rule was within the team, the rule was you have to take stairs only.
Yeah,
And by the time, like, we were maybe late for 2 minutes or 3 minutes to the meeting, but by the time we go there, our that day's my at least for me that day's workout is done, right? So
yeah,
I think with remote work, the biggest tip I will say is have self discipline, right? Be it work, be it your personal goals, fitness. Have a set time, have a set time slot, have discipline in that. Once you are in office setup, like that is your office working hours, even if someone rings a doorbell, right, try not to open it as if you are in an office, right? Let's say if you on that
Mm.
day at 9 o'clock, if you are in office, nobody's going to answer that doorbell, right?
Mhm.
And the person who has came, either he will drop the package, he will leave a note, or whatever is the situation there, right? So try to have a self discipline in that, and try to make sure after like 5 o'clock or whatever is your end time in office, you literally disconnect from the work, right? It is very hard in pandemic or in remote work. What we have seen is people keep on working till like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., right? And the reason they say is, oh, I don't have anything else to do, so I was just looking at my computer and I saw your message and I responded. But
Yeah,
that is setting a wrong culture, right? That is setting like, that means you are available at 10 p.m. most of the time, and
yeah,
people will keep on messaging you. They will ask if they are. On the other hand, if you think of it as a real 9 to 5 or 6, then probably the person has to wait for next day, and definitely next day you are going to respond the way to unblock that person, right? So I think self discipline is really really important. Keeping yourself like physically active, that is also very important.
yeah. I think on the self discipline, 100%, right? 100% agree with what you're saying. I would just say that I think it would vary a little bit based on like maybe the company or the expectations of the company that you have, because I think drawing these boundaries are important. So you don't need to so what how I like to do it is like have some time, like you need to like have a time when you are basically shutting down your laptop, right, or taking a break. So for me it's usually like at like 5 p.m. I uh, like block about couple of hours to like pick up my kid and like spend time with him, play with him. So that is like my downtime. And then once I put him to bed, I then log in, right? So that, and I have been doing it for like since I'm working. So like that expectation is now set that okay,
Okay.
and I actually block my calendar, right? So
Okay.
people are aware that okay, like I cannot book meetings during this time, or he's going to respond back at a later time. I said so. I think like when you're remote, like setting those expectations and like at times even over communicating can be very useful.
Okay.
Uh, and then especially like as a manager, I have seen that my calendar can get filled up very quickly. So protecting your even your daytime, right, to actually spend on like you want to write a document or you want to read up about something technical, or you want to uh, build something, right? So I what I do is I like to book focus time, and usually like Google Calendar has this option to actually book focus time on your calendar. So I always encourage my team members to also like do that, like book focus
Yes.
time for yourself, where you can actually maybe you want to get something done and you are not able to like carve out time for that. Book that focus time and like work on that, right? So that people know that okay, uh, I should book at some other time, otherwise very quickly your calendar will get
Yes.
filled. So like setting those boundaries and time management has like worked well for me over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think I like your point where when you said like you have set that routine. That means that is kind of expected from you, right? And
Yeah,
everybody in the team knows about it. So I think that is really good. But people who were in that mode that they did once or twice, right?
yeah,
Right. I think that was setting the wrong expectations, right? And that is why I was mentioning disconnect is very important. Like you have to
Yeah.
set boundaries, right? Cool.
Health aspect is definitely I struggle with a lot, because you are you are like spending a lot of time at home, and you are either not eating at the right time,
Yes.
or you whenever you are eating, you are maybe like overeating or not eating very healthy. So that's something that I think there are days when I do well, or there are phases when I do well. I make sure that I am eating very healthy and eating at time, and then going for a walk. But then there are like phases when I struggle with that, right? So that's something that I think I need to improve. Personally, I need to improve on the health aspect of it, the physical health aspect of it, right?
I think for me the biggest challenge was access to food. Right, when I'm working from home, I have easy access to like whatever is at home. Right, I know where I have kept it. I will just go and grab it and eat it. Right. So even
Yeah,
if I'm not hungry, but yeah, if I'm thinking something, I just go down to the kitchen. I'm still thinking, and I will just open a packet
yeah.
something and start eating it. So yeah, definitely. I regret it later, but by that time the damage is done, right? So
Even like apart from physical health, I think mental health is another thing. Like because we are spending most of our time just by ourselves in our home office, maybe we are not like talking to somebody else like in person. So I think there is a mental health aspect that also something that we need to at least be very aware of, that okay,
yeah,
am I like getting burnt out? Am I like over stressing about a particular situation? Maybe I need to talk about it with somebody else, maybe my manager, or another colleague. I think that really, really helps a lot. So, as a manager, I always like try to make sure that I do certain things that makes it easy for my employees to operate well in a remote setting, right? So one thing that I make sure that I never miss is the one-on-ones, like the
yeah,
weekly one-on-ones. For me, the one-on-ones has to be weekly. Does not matter how many reports I have. And if there are like weeks when we don't have anything to talk about, we can always like check in and cancel. But like that, having that time on the calendar is like super important to me. So my advice to all the managers is like definitely have weekly one-on-ones with your reports. And and just like it, actually I would like recommend to like not only talk about work, but
hmm,
also just have a very like normal discussion that you would have with another person. So a lot of times just like asking about like how your kid is doing, uh, like your favorite TV shows, movies, what is it that you did over the weekend, like with things that we consider as small talk, I think really helps, right?
yeah,
Like build that connection with your employees, because it's quite possible that you have never like met your team member in person, right? You're just doing it remotely. So I would definitely like encourage doing that. A few other things that I like to do is uh, make sure that I encourage my team members to have one-on-ones with other team members, or like
oh,
cross team members, right?
okay,
So what would like imagine what would happen when you are in a real physical location is you'll bump into people in the hallway, or
yeah,
in some like maybe there is like free pizza, you are going picking up pizza, you are actually talking to that person, a product manager or a developer, or another leader, right? But you don't get that opportunity. That never happens. Like you cannot replicate that easily in a remote environment. So you have to kind of be deliberate about it. So even if the frequency of those one-on-ones is like once a month or once a quarter, I highly encourage people to like do that, right? Or even like few team members, just like open up a Zoom room and just like go talk about a certain topic, and just like connect, right? That is very, very powerful. um, Another thing I feel is like super important is for managers to make sure that uh, like the expectations that you have of the employee are uh, like clear to them, right? What they need to get done to be successful. Because I think again, like it's easier in a in-person environment. When you are remote, it can get a little challenging. So just write things down for them and make sure that like you're tracking the progress. If they are having any blockers, you're trying like actively to like remove those roadblocks for them. uh, those things I have found like really, really helpful. uh, what about you? Have you Do you have like anything to share on those aspects?
I think I loved your like when you said you set up one-on-ones across teams or within team members. I think you are going above and beyond to provide your direct reports with an experience or enabling them. I really loved this, and I will means with this podcast, I'm going to take away that one piece. Really, I
Awesome.
yeah, I'm gonna carry it for rest of my career.
Awesome. Awesome. Another thing I have seen is really helpful is the the ability to write down things, right? um, because we all are remote, and people join, they leave. So it's always good to write things down.
Okay.
If you are like coming to a like aligning, you are saying, right? I think alignment is super easy if you have like written things down, and
Yes.
then you can actually memorialize it, like
Yeah.
put it in writing, get feedback from others. So I would also like highly encourage people to like have a culture of writing things
Got it.
down. I'm also seeing lot of companies like the way they are like adopting to it is like actually like recording things, right? Like video
Oh.
recording. Like even
Oh.
in my current company, there is a very good uh, culture of actually recording. uh, like let's say you want to explain a particular product feature. So instead of writing like a lot of document or like explaining it in a meeting, people are just recording a quick 5 minute video, the way we are talking. And then just now it's like it can be shared with anybody, right? And you
Yeah.
can actually comment on those videos. And then there are like startups around this whole like video recording and sharing that are like doing very well. Like the product that we use is called Loom,
Okay.
and I think they are like a fast growing startup in this space. So I think like a lot of technologies can be used to make sure that you are working effectively
Yeah.
remotely.
I like recordings, and to be honest, not only recordings, the transcription of those recordings as well, right?
Yeah,
So
it does auto transcribe.
let's
Yeah,
say let's say there is a meeting or of like 1 hour, right? I don't have time to go and do the whole 1 hour meeting again. I basically know the gist of it. I go open the transcript and I directly find what I was looking for. So, and
yeah.
in that section, I get the answer, right? What someone was trying to say about a particular feature or something. So, yeah, I like that idea.
Another area which is like more about your setup, right? So
Oh,
I think it is. I believe that if you are working remotely, like your setup that you have in the office, so things like the camera,
mhm.
uh, the monitor setup that you have, the keyboard, all these things are can give you like a huge advantage and a leverage. So like investing in those like devices or equipment can go a very long way. So I think I would highly encourage people to like actually invest in a good camera. So
Yeah,
a good webcam, if your laptop does not have a great webcam, um, I think investing in like multiple monitors or bigger sized monitors, like kind of try to replicate the setup that you had in office, a standing desk, because you don't always want to be sitting down while you're remote. So like a good standing desk goes a very long way. I
yeah,
think I kind of invested in these things early, while
Okay.
starting remote, and that has made my like remote work, I think, much more productive.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And many
yes,
companies are actually they are investing in that also. Like
yeah,
some companies will have benefits, onboarding benefits or something to set up your home office.
yeah. There is like this. Most companies have productivity budgets,
Yeah.
technology budgets for like reimbursing this kind of equipments, etc. So yeah, make use of that. I think that goes a very very long way.
I think even if some company doesn't have, I think it doesn't hurt
It
to,
makes sense to invest by yourself. Yeah,
yeah, or even just go and try to ask your manager or your admin, right? Like, hey, I have this problem in the
yeah.
company. Is there any channel, any way that I can like reimburse or something, right? So it doesn't hurt to ask actually. And if they say no, definitely you can take your money and go and buy and still, because it is gonna help you be more productive, right? So
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
cool, Ankur. It was so amazing talking with you about all this tips and tricks, the way remote work and the return to office culture is going on. So, how do you see this? How do you summarize this whole conversation?
Yeah, I think we had a good discussion. I think it was nice to go back to the days when it started, and see the transition into like fully being remote. It's amazing, like how far we have come in just 3 years. I
Yeah.
think the future of remote work looks great. And yeah, I think had a good discussion, and I am also going away with few of the tips, tricks, experiences that you shared. So yeah, what about you? How did you find it?
Oh, I think I had an amazing discussion with you about remote work. I will tell you the one thing that I took away from this was having one-on-ones across team and with team members. That was the highlight for me today. And other tips and tricks that you shared with regarding mental health, self-discipline, time management. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed discussing all of those things. And one aspect you said was to have your own office setup. I think that is also very, very important to have, yeah, like good productivity, right? So yeah, I think hybrid work is something that works for me, and maybe the future is more remote work. That's how I see it.
Great.
Cool.
That's a great summary. I think that's all for another episode of Tech Guys Banter, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye
Cool.
bye.